they do most of their work. They're broken into groups based on their levels, and they're able to have more one. Hold on one second. They're able to have more of like a one-on-one learning situation because they're in like groups of 1 and 2, and there's 1 or 2 teachers and or aides that are around during that. Other things we have in our classroom that are a little bit different than like a general education classroom is we'll have a lot of like games and like learning games and manipulative. So like in here we have like all the different games. We have different Legos so the students can build things. We have pattern blocks, Play-Doh, different memory games and things like that to help with their learning. And then also we do social emotional learning and behavior goals. So when our students are struggling with their behaviors in the classroom, we will have them like work on games together so that they learn how to interact correctly with their peers. I think that was all I was going to tell you guys about, but I can show you another classroom too. This is our classroom, so I just showed you. So this is where I spend most of my time. We also team up with our team members, and this is another classroom. Did you want to say bye?
Bye.
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 But yeah, did you guys have any questions?
Maybe I have a question. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing and allowing us to be part of your school now. And that's a wonderful idea that you use games in case we have issues with behavior. So it probably can calm guys down. I have 2 questions. First, do you have like specific games? Maybe you can recommend us anything. And second, if you work with paraeducators, so where is your support and paraeducator place, like where she or he is sitting, or it's around the room, or maybe a special place, or like this?
For games, well, it kind of depends. Like one of the games we'll play with the kids is Candyland because they have to follow instructions and wait their turn and stuff like that. So just any like standard like board game that's like simple enough for them to follow. But then like for the learning games, we'll use like color and shape bingo and stuff like that. And then for the paraprofessionals, we have 2 in our classroom. So we have the mentor teacher, who's Laura, who's my mentor, and then myself, and then we have 2 other instructional aides or paraprofessionals. One of them follows a certain student or 2 around most of the day to support with their behavioral needs and academic needs. And then the other one will stay in our classroom so that she's here because we also have students who need toileting needs and feeding needs. So some of our students use feeding tubes, and so there has to be an aide present so that if there are other students in the classroom, the teacher is able to stay in the classroom and the aide will perform the duties like toileting services and feeding services.
So altogether, how many you have? So you have a teacher who is teaching the class, then in the room, how many educators can be at the same time? So then you have paraeducator and...
Yeah, so we have like the lead teacher, myself, and then 2 aides. So we have 4 people minimum in the classroom, like 4 adults minimum pretty much all the time, other than when our students go out to their specials like music, PE, things like that.
How many students are in the group?
In my classroom, we have 7 students right now. So we have a really small class.
And which 4 adults, right?
Yeah, 4 adults. But that being said, we have a student who's in 2nd grade who is wheelchair bound. He can walk with a walker, but he also like reserves toileting services. He can't he uses pull-up diapers because he can't feel the sensation of going to the bathroom. So he has to be changed like multiple times throughout the day, like sometimes up to 10 times a day, like during the school day alone. So obviously having someone there who's able to take him every time he needs to use the restroom, you know, is very important, because if we didn't have that many adults in our classroom, we would have to be completely stopping all teaching for that to happen.
Right. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you very much. And look at the chat. So we have more and more ideas. As for games, maybe guys, you can comment. So we will keep the chat. So I will copy it, or how to save it. Yes, I will save the chat. So with all the ideas. So that's why let's be active. You can ask questions and give some comments, and maybe some of our American representatives, so let's say like this, can comment on the games. Yeah.
Can I ask, I wanted
Yeah.
to ask Megan,
Okay.
you showed us the classroom management, so how the desks are in the classroom organized. Do you change the position of the desks according to your purposes, I mean, your tasks that you are doing with kids, or is it mostly the same most of the time?
So our desks, we keep our desks all right here. So like I'm standing up at the whiteboard right now, and like the students' desks are right here, where if we're teaching something that requires them to like watch the screen, like the computer screen will project up here. And like if we're gonna have them watch something like that, we actually have these little dots on the floor, so they come and sit right on the floor in front of the screen. And then same thing for reading, they'll come and sit on these dots, and we'll read stories and do ELA stuff like that, like language arts. But the desks usually stay in the same spots, and we utilize the tables so that we can have them come around and be closer up to us. So we don't have to move the desks like on a daily basis. That's why we use the tables.
I see, okay.
Yeah. But they are easy to move. So if you wanted to change their configuration or their shape, it's really easy to do so.
Yeah, because in Ukraine, not all classes are accommodated in this way. So we are also on this way. We also have already, we call it New Ukrainian School. So we also try to take international experience, but still we have very big Soviet Union background, and not all classes are so flexible. Okay.
Especially when you do not have your own classroom and you have to move around the school, and you are somewhere at, for example, chemistry lab where you have to teach English. So, and the desks there are, so to say, glued to the floor, and you can't move them or even, change the position. So you have just to, mix your students somehow around, and very carefully doing it.
And
Yeah,
also
that's
you have like no space for moving even, yes. So it's like the straight rows, and you can't make them stand up and move and sing and dance, anything. So they just have to sit and maybe just stand up, and that's all. So yeah, Maria was just definitely true about our sad situation here.
So Maria, you also said that you don't have your own classroom sometimes. So is every teacher given their own classroom, or do you guys have to share classrooms?
Not every teacher. In my school, mostly the teachers who are also tutors at the same time. So I have my own form that I tute, and I have a classroom. But my colleague, who is also an English teacher, she is usually carrying a big box with games, balls, and everything that she needs around the school, because she has mostly all of the time her lessons are in different classrooms. So she has to move, and she moves very fast, because in one break, so in 15 minutes, she has to bring the children back to the teacher, to the tutor. I mean, for example, primary students, she works mostly with them, then catch another group of another primary students and bring them to another classroom. And so that's just in such a short period of time. And sometimes it's not a classroom that is suitable for an English lesson.
Okay, guys, do you have any other questions? Anastasia, yes, you have question. I see your hand, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested. Do you have some special facilities or equipment that differs from usual classrooms? Do you use something?
For
Did you say
special kids, yeah,
different-
you mean?
like different
Yeah.
equipment, like different seating and stuff like that?
Yeah, it
Um,
can be seating or, you know, some maybe toys or maybe some accommodations, like anything for special kids.
So for our classroom, we do a fine motor rotation, which helps build the kids like hand strengths. When they come in kindergarten, some of them have not learned how to properly hold a pencil, and how to write and form like write their letters and their numbers. So their skill that they're needing is to strengthen the muscles in their thumbs. So we have tongs and they'll play games like we say, pick up a pom-pom, which is like just a little piece of like a cotton ball, and they'll place it with their tongs on a piece of paper in a certain spot. And it's using that same like muscle to grip and close. So that's one of the things we do for that. There's tons of different like games I'm sure people use. I just know that's the one that we use in our classroom a lot. And then as for like other things that we use, we have sensory vests that are just like, they're weighted vests that go on our students and they just kind of Velcro together. This one's kind of stuck, but you would just put this over, like put the kid's arm through here, these holes. This is tiny. It's for a kindergartner. I'm not that small, but like their arms would go through here and it straps around their stomach and like connects to them to help give them that sensory need. And then other things like we have like alternative seating and stuff. We have like bean bags around. We have these little milk crate seats that my teacher made herself. But there's also like other seats that are like exercise ball chairs that are really helpful for some students. I've seen those in some classrooms. Those are really cool. They have wobble seats. Have some up here. So they're those things up there. And they're like little stools that they can sit on and they spin or they kind of like jiggle around so that the kids can like fidget in their seat. I think that's all that I can think of like off the top of my head. I know that there's lots of different things in other classrooms. So if anyone else has something they want to chime in with.
Thank you. So we also have Taylor and someone else wanted to answer. Taylor, so you also want to share something with us?
Yeah, so we also, like in my classroom, we have some of our kids use technology devices to communicate. So for one, like he has this iPad and it will have all these different things. So he can like create a sentence. So he could go, I, and it will say it out loud and it moves to something else. He could say, I love, I don't know, let's see, I love flower or something. And then he can tap up here. I love flower. And he can speak through that and he can like create sentences. For some students who can't quite like navigate a device, you can do something like super like simple. So we have for one student, we have like bathroom, water, more, and you can click it. Water. And it will just say water. So if he's wanting water, he can go to this device and click it on his desk. So just some like communication devices that we use. And we even do like daily schedules. So like all of our students will have like their name on their schedule and they make it every morning. And it's just little Velcro pieces depending on the day. And like they check it as they go so they know, oh, it's time for homeroom. Oh, it's time for snack. It's time for reading. It's time for math. And they check it throughout the day. And we find that it really helps like get them in that mindset before they start a subject.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing, because we are going to submit some projects where we are going to ask for sponsorship, and probably such ideas will help us how we can make a life of our students easier. And as for this iPad, so this program, so is it like a special program application for sentence making?
Yes, that's something that is usually coming through speech and language services. So one of our students also, or two of our students use those, the touch chat is what it's called. And that was something that was set up for them and given to them through their speech and language pathology services.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. So that's really meaningful. And I hope you guys don't mind that we are recording this session, because probably some of our teachers would like to rewind it and watch it one more time for ideas, okay, for their potential projects in the future. Okay, and please look at the chat. So there are so many comments, so many interesting things. Maybe anybody would like to have any comments, not in the chat, but unmute yourself and say it out loud.
One thing that is in my classroom is we use this program called the Zones of Regulation, and I think I added the website to the chat, hopefully. Oh, yes, okay. And so we have a zone table where we have above all of the posters of the different zones of regulations, which are just like the different emotions that the students feel. Then they have a pin with their name on it, and then they pin their name to which zone they're in. And so if they say that they're in the red zone, which is like angry, upset, they're not feeling very safe right now, they can say, I need to go to the zone table, and they go there, and there's like a little Zen garden, there's shaving cream, there's rain sticks, there's just all of these sensory needs that they can look through. And then there's also the zone book where they can identify their feelings and then do some worksheets to help them move back to the green zone.
So this is something that Megan is showing right now. Yeah. So if you look at Megan's screen, so you will see that she's showing this blue, green, and other colors. And it's kind of like a stress relief zone. Yeah. Again, I see Taylor, you also have it in your school. That's amazing, right? So, and guys, as soon as I'm here, so I can order it on Amazon and bring back to Ukraine. So we need to think about it. Yeah, we need to think about all those tools and apps that we can use. Yeah, thank you very much. Because maybe we have it in Ukraine in some schools, but it's not like very common. I see that it's something that you need to have in all classrooms because you're all from different schools and you have it. Yeah, so it's like obligatory, or it's to have, for example,
Mesa. So like we're in the same school district, so it's not necessarily all schools in Arizona, it's the district that we're in. One of our professional learning or developments talked about it, so we started implementing it into Mesa.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that we all use is a system called PBIS. And I've added to the chat the PBIS World website, which you can identify student behaviors, and then it has all of the resources to help you change those behaviors.
Great, thank you so much.
Here's another idea. I don't know if you guys are interested for the zone check-in. Like every student here has like a magnet and they each have their number on it. And when they walk into the classroom, they automatically point if they're in the red zone, the green zone, the yellow zone, or the blue zone.
Right. And it also teaches like a lot, so kids can understand their feelings. So they already, even they're small, so they will try to understand how they feel. Yeah, so they learn themselves. So that's an amazing idea. Plus for us, it's good because if you do this in English, so which is their third language after Ukrainian and Russian, so they will learn more words in English, right? So we can try to integrate it and work on it. So that's an amazing idea. Even for university students, I think these zones can be really helpful. Okay, yeah, and Juanita also wrote that there is a book about that in DVD. Yeah, good. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies.
May I ask for some details? So when a student feels that he is now in a red zone, he just moves to the zone and does the tasks that you have told Casey. Does it mean that the teacher is leading the lesson even without noticing that the child is not involved in the process or not? So what happens, I mean, at that moment? What does the teacher do?
Well, the biggest step in, oh, sorry, you can go ahead, Taylor.
No, go for it. No, you're good.
Well, I think the biggest thing in using this zones of regulation is that we find that a lot of students can't identify their emotions is the biggest problem. And so just having a student be able to raise their hand and say, I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling red, or I have big feelings, or however you want to phrase it in your classroom is the number one huge step. And so ideally, the first time that it happens, you would want to stop the lesson and celebrate that they did it. And then over time, it becomes very self-regulated where you can let them go. Did you want to add anything, Taylor?
Yeah, I can. So we have like a Zen zone in my classroom. And so we have like all the zones on the wall. Like when I feel red, I am mad or whatever. Blue, I'm sad. Green, calm. And underneath it says my red strategies. So the whole point of like zones of regulation is to teach those strategies that when you are feeling a certain way, how to kind of calm that feeling down so it's not affecting other people. So it says my red strategies. I can take deep breaths. I can talk to someone, take a break, use a stress ball. We have all these like fidgets and things that they can use over in the Zen zone if they need like some kind of fidget to calm them. But yeah, so with learning your feelings, you're also on top of it learning how to kind of regulate your feelings and what to do. Oh, what do I do when I feel tired? What should I do when I feel angry, kind of thing.
Amazing idea. Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's really something that we can do in Ukraine, and it will be very both emotionally good for kids and the educational from language point of view. Even if they during the break pass by and see these words, you know, they will be somewhere in their head, right? So they will see these words if we put the stickers with English words. So this will be very good for them to learn new vocabulary. Ksenia, I see that you raise your hand. You have a question, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask, yes, do all of your class is that small? So Megan said it's only 7 people. Yes, is it everywhere like this? Because like we have mixed classes, like special children, usually it's up to 20 and even now up to 30 children in a classroom. So if to use such a emotional zone, yes, because yes, recognition of emotions, it's like a very difficult point for special children. It will be quite difficult to stop the learning, yes, stop the studying, and to talk about emotions. The teacher in our inclusive class won't do that because he has like 20 other children that he has to teach. Yeah, so how about like the number of pupils in your classes? Like, is it everywhere the same?
It's different. Some classrooms have a lot more, some have a lot less. It really just depends on like how many students at your school qualify for each program and where they're placed. So it can vary.
And Juanita, you also raised your hand.
Yeah, so in my classroom, we have 13 students. 12 only show up, 13 is on the roster. But we do the same thing about what Megan does in there. But when I was, so this semester, it's like our senior year residency. So the whole year, 1 year we're in gen ed and another term we're in a special ed education classroom. So when I was last semester in the general education classroom, I did have, and it was during COVID year, so there was a little bit of less students just because some were online and some were in person. There were about 25, 26 students in there. And that was a little pushing it because that's a little too many students in one classroom, but it was fine. But the zones of regulations that we did last year, it was more of a, you put your pin, like you move it up and down on a chart. When they needed to calm down or something, and they weren't paying attention, it was more of like since they were 5th graders, it was more of like, if you can't focus right now, like if you had a fidget in your desk, you can use it on your lap down here, as long as the teacher's not noticing it. They were also allowed to put their head down, but if they did miss the lesson, it was up to them to come in during lunch or ask questions after school or come before school started, and they had to ask what they missed during that time. That way the lesson kept going.
Mhm. Okay, and you speak about 26 students and they're mixed. Some of them can be with special needs or with a certain disability, and some kids without disabilities, yeah?
Well, yeah, my favorite classroom was an inclusion classroom. So I had ELD students, they're learning how to speak either English, whatever language they spoke, learning how to speak English. And then we had special education kids in our classroom as well, and just general education students.
Okay, yeah, and Casey wrote us in the chat that according to US maybe law or regulation, so there is a ratio 6:1:1. Yeah, 6 students, 1 teacher, 1 paraprofessional. So it should be like this. Okay, thank you for that. And we also have our standards and measures. Not always we keep to them and stick to them, but we have these regulations as well. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Do you guys have any other questions? Because some of American educators have to come back to their classes, but some will still stay with us. So do you have any questions, like as for our first part, some general things about, I see that in the chat we write about apps that we can use to teach kids different things, maybe classroom, instructions, regulations. So do you have any questions regarding this? Okay, if we don't have any questions as for this, so we have some more people who joined us. So welcome everyone who have just joined us. So we had our first part. It was kind of an introductory part, and our speakers shared their classroom environment. So some hints, some games, and technology that they use in order to make their classroom environment really inclusive. And now we will move to this kind of a second block, yeah, and we are going to speak about roles, responsibilities, job, and everything about the paraprofessional. Okay, Casey, would you like to lead this session?
Sure.
Okay.
I am going to share my screen.
And while you are sharing your screen, we say goodbye to Megan. Sorry, Casey, but I really want to say a very big thank you for Megan for investing in our development. So thank you very much. And yes, we hug and say all warm words to your kids. They were just adorable. Good, thank you so
I'm
much.
Glad I could help. Have a great day.
Have a great day too. Bye. Bye. Okay. Yes, sorry, Casey.
No worries. She was great. So this is a presentation for the paraprofessionals in my student teaching right now. And it's actually doubled as an assignment for one of our classes. So that was great too. So a paraprofessional, they are in our classes to help us get the students out of special education is the whole goal. It's kind of funny to think that we want to do so much for our students so that we don't have to see them again, but it kind of is the truth. So the whole goal of getting your paraprofessionals and having some time at the beginning to learn about what your goal is for the classroom so that it's a team rather than a teacher kind of delegating duties to their paras, or they're also known as IAs, instructional assistants, and that you want everybody to have the same goal in mind. You want everybody to have the same vision for the classroom, the same roles of the students. Just something as simple as asking everybody to clean up the classroom at the end of the day. To me, that is everybody getting everything off the desks, cleaning the tops of the desks, the sides, putting the chair up, and then getting their backpack and ready to go. But to a paraprofessional, that might just mean clearing off the desk and setting up the chair. So just sitting down and having those conversations of, this is what the task looks like to me, here's how we're going to carry it out. And that mostly you want to be doing more work than the students are doing more work than the teachers and the paraprofessionals, especially in special education, because I know a lot of times it's so much easier to just do something really quickly for the student, but actually letting them do it on their own and giving them the patience and the time to try, fail, and eventually succeed under the watch of the team that is in your class, rather than just the one paraprofessional that the student latches onto or the teacher that the student latches onto. Everybody needs to be seen as an adult, a change maker, a vital role in every student's learning and social, emotional well-being. There is this quote from Benjamin Franklin that I really love to say. Tell me and I forget, teach me, I will remember, involve me and I will learn. And that is a big guiding principle for everybody in our classroom, and how we try to go about involving everybody rather than just lecturing. Let's see. So we have the main thing that we try to do is just communicate. And it's the easiest way to solve problems, and it just keeps everything running so smoothly. So we have a communication log that's with every student, and it's just a folder with a bunch of different pieces of lined paper in it. And we have the date that they come to school, and we just write down anything that happened, or any positives, any negatives, there's, a food drive going on, just any communication that needs to happen. And the only reason that they wouldn't have that is if they are on a behavior plan where we attach notes to that behavior plan anyway. And then we also have a chat room that we have on WebEx, and we can just instant message each other or text, whatever is easier, honestly, at that point. And then everybody in our school also has walkie-talkies. And so we always carry around a walkie-talkie. So if there's an emergency, you can just call out, help, we're trapped in the bathroom. And then we also have progress monitoring, which I kind of come under communication, where we test our students, some daily, some weekly, and some quarterly. And that goes in our communication logs within the teachers that we all discuss. And we track the progress, and then we're really working hard to understand Excel to the point that we can take all of the data from the progress monitoring and put it into Excel so that we can have a graph to see if their assessments line up with their IEP goals, to track their progress and see what the interventions or strategies that we need to use to either bring them up, or if we should move them to another group, or even the best, if they can test out of our classroom. And so right here, we just have little denotations that I've put on there for our communication logs and our progress monitoring binders, that for each student, there is a section with their name on it, and it has what they're working on in math, reading, science, and social studies. And it has it all listed out. And if it's black and it's crossed out, that means they've done it, they've mastered it, we're moving on to the next thing. Red means that they're about 70% of the way through mastering it, and we need to come back and revisit it just every once in a while. Not a lot of time needs to go into it. And then green means that we really need to work on this. It's a go. Should I stop and do questions really quick? I feel like I just threw a lot of information out.
That's a lot of information, but very useful thing. Yeah. So, and I even jotted down for myself, like walkie-talkie. So that's also the idea. Yeah. For us, for Ukrainian teachers, I'm not sure that all schools have walkie-talkies. So if you're going to write your project, your educational project, so this is also something that you can explain why you need that and ask for money. Yes. But why not? Okay. And anybody, do you have questions as for work of our professional? Maybe other people who can assist teachers at school? Don't be shy. So anybody from university students or school teachers, do you guys have paraprofessionals? How do you, maybe you can share how you work with your support?
We use paraprofessionals in my room as well. I'm in a self-contained 1st through 3rd grade room. Kind of like Megan's classroom, we have tables as well. So like one IA will be at this table over here, and then we have one right here, and then we have the teacher's desk over there where they're sitting. So kind of how that works is we do stations as well, and they like rotate through. So the paraprofessionals are in charge of teaching that station, but however, they don't lesson plan. So our teacher, so the special education teacher over the room, she'll do the lesson plans for both those tables. And a lot of times it's review work that the students already, they know how to do, they just need help mastering that skill, is kind of how we use them in our room. But here they aren't allowed to choose what they're teaching to the kids, I guess is a better way, and plan, and that's all on the special education teacher to work on those goals for the kids.
And you also mentioned lesson plan. For Ukrainian teachers, it can be really like, a pain because we really have to do this, at least in the past, we used to do it for every lesson. Yeah, so we had a lesson plan and we had to write all the details about that and submit it. And sometimes they were verified for authorities, especially if you're a novice teacher. So do you have the same in the States? Do you need to have like every lesson plan for every class?
So to an extent, yes. So the teacher that, so this is her room, what she does, and I can't find it. For the IA, she makes this little table, the lesson plans. For IAs, do you have any right now? The IAs already saw them for the week, so they kind of just got rid of them. But what she does is we have like folders, so these students would be doing all different things with different work for each according to like their level that they're on, academic level. What it looks like is it's literally just like what activity are they doing. So it's a tiny just little table for every day. We have 4 different groups, so we do have to plan for 4 different groups for 3 tables. It is hard and it's long, and it is a daily thing we have to plan for. But you can kind of take away time from that by just putting the activity on the lesson plan and having that verbal communication with your parapros every morning, like, hey, this is what I want you to do with them at this table for this assignment. That way you don't have to type every single word out and everything you want them to do. You can just communicate about it. So I say that would save a lot of time. That's what we do, at least.
Yeah, because to write down all the instructions, it can be very time consuming.
Yes. Is it okay if I just add something to that too?
Sure.
Okay, so for the lesson planning, it's a little bit more different in our class. So in the 1st grade classroom, it's pretty similar to what you were saying. So we have like an outline, and we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And for every subject, we do have to lesson plan like very detailed about like what it is we're going to be doing, what we're going to be saying, what activities we're going to do. And we don't really get it checked off, but we do have the principal walk through like every now and then, and you're supposed to have them printed and on your table. So if the principal does come in, they'll take a look and they'll ask, what are you doing? What are you teaching? And they'll ask the students the same thing. They'll come and ask the students, what are you doing in class? What are you learning? And we have to hope that the students know that what they're learning and what they're doing. So yeah, that's kind of like how it is. It doesn't get written off like, okay, you can teach this lesson, but more like if they walk in, they have to see the lesson plans and they do have to see what it is you're doing.
Okay, and as for like, for example, you have a course, yeah, like calculus or anything or math, and do you have all the lesson plans at the beginning of the course, at the beginning of their semester, or how do you would call it, or it's lesson by lesson? You can do this.
So we do weekly lessons. So every week we'll take a look at the contents, like the standards that we have to follow, and we'll see where the students are, what it is we can teach, and how, and if they're able to if they've successfully mastered the standard. If they have, then we'll move on to the next one next week, and we'll plan for the whole week. If the students have not mastered the standard, then we don't move on to it just yet. We try to give them a few more days. So that's kind of like how it works. We have a curriculum that we follow and like guidelines that we do have to follow. But according to like how the lesson is and everything, like what activities we do, no, that's planned all the week before, and then we plan it for the next coming week.
Okay, thank you very much. So guys, do you have any other questions? And okay, so yes, maybe you can tell us a little bit more if you want to share any specific information like about paras. And yeah, so maybe you can tell us who are these people who are eligible to be a para professional.
Yeah, so you need to be 19. You have to have your fingerprint clearance card, which is just essentially you just have to register your fingerprints and get a card that has them. And then you need to have your high school diploma or an associate's degree. And then you have to pass a test, and the test I think is pretty, I haven't honestly seen the paraprofessional test. Has anybody else seen it? No? I imagine it would be a lot like the subtests, or like a subtest for the professional knowledge, just knowing about the laws, what we can and can't do, how to, handle a student if they're getting out of hand, things like that. Their roles, here we go. So they build relationships with the students and staff. They do need to familiarize themselves with the students' IEPs, even though they are not responsible for making or creating or really being a big part of their IEP, but they do help to carry out the goals and the service minutes in class for the IEPs. So they work with students one-on-one individually, and then they also can lead small groups. But just as Taylor and Roseanne were saying, they do not make the lessons for those small groups. The teacher, who would be like the certified main specialist of special education, would hand them those lessons, and then they would complete them. And then they would take the data that they collected from those students in that group, exit tickets, just a little something so that they can leave that group, formal testing, just casual data collection from the students. And then either they can work to include that data in my class, the Excel spreadsheet that we were working so hard to figure out. And then what they also do is whenever the students get enrolled in the Department of Disability, the DDD within education, or the Arizona Department of Education, they also can get services through Medicaid. And so some of the paraprofessionals need to get certified in Medicaid services, and then they can bill for those Medicaid services throughout the day. So some of those services would be like walking, toileting, eating, just some pretty basic life skills. And then they bill Medicaid for those hours for the school.
Okay. I have a quick question. For example, if you're in a younger, when paras work with youngsters, so it's like pretty easy. So they have maybe basic tasks like to draw something with them or to put some things together. But if their child is in high school, so not every para can be aware of science, biology, this kind of subjects. So how do they help in this case? So I understand that they don't need to have special knowledge about that subject, but still you need to understand how to figure out some formulas or chemistry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are definitely times when the paras rely on the other students in the class to be like, what exactly are we doing? Or how do you do this? Yeah, it can be a little hard, but luckily there are a lot of modifications for our students. So they're not really going into full calculus head on. Might be taking calculus, but are allowed to have extra time, use calculators, use manipulatives, and all those things to make it a little easier on them, and the para as well.
Mhm. Good. Yeah. So that's why it's okay to ask others for help. Yeah. So and it's not a shame like, oh, I don't know that. So maybe we can just give them the tasks in advance, discuss maybe the day before that we are going to do this and that, so that they will be a little bit aware of what is going on.
Yeah. I wanted to see if I could.
Okay.
This
Yeah,
is-
and you're going to share with us some pictures, and we see that we have some students, some American educators who are going to leave us, so Jesse and Razan. So I understand that you need to come back to your classes. So thank you very much for investing your time, your ideas, and you were very active in the chat, sharing everything you could with us. So thank you very, very much for that. So ladies, you're like superstars for us. Thank you very much. You rock. We wish you success, and hopefully all kids will be happy no matter they're in Ukraine, in America. So with such educators like you, so the future is in good hands. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Good day.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we are going to speak about IEP in a sec. Okay, Razan, if you can stay
Yeah.
with the, okay.
I just wanted to show this picture
Mhm.
really quick. These are cookie sheets that the teacher binded together with some hinges right here. And these are magnets with English letter sounds, word endings. And then she has the matching color in a little patchwork color on the side, also magnetized. So she can use these magnets and set them up on these little, I cannot think of the words of these right now, little gliders. And then they work as privacy walls, and they can also work through what letters make which sounds. And then the teacher can take away the actual W magnet and replace it with the same color of the patch. And then the students can put together different colors to make a word. So it'd be like the WH patch would be orange, and they would go, and go orange, green, red. And then they can associate the color with the sound and then look at it and manipulate it on these magnet trays. And I thought that was brilliant. And yeah.
Yeah, really. And can you imagine how useful it can be for ESL classes, right? When it is their third, even not second language, their third language. Great,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yes.
Again, Ukrainian teachers, so this is something that we can think of, and probably we can order it and try to buy it for our projects. Great.
What's the name of it? Can you tell it again? Like, how is it named? Like that pretty thing with magnets. I'm in love with it already.
Oh, I don't even know what she calls it. She just made, it's just a cookie tray with some magnets on it. She just, she
So-
made the whole thing. Everything is
So
homemade.
it's like DIY. Yes, it's like DIY, right? I'm not sure that we can find like the magnet ladders like this. I'm not sure about it. Like here in Ukraine, they're like
Yeah,
so
she
pretty
just-
small.
She just laminated them and then hot glued magnets on the back of the laminations. Is how she did it.
Okay, thank you for an idea. Thanks.
Okay, and look, Asal is showing her students. Yeah, so we have.
He said he learned a lot and he's leaving.
Oh, okay, great. You're now super smart boy. So no more classes for today. You know everything. You can leave school for today. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry guys for interruptions, but you know, when there's kids, I lose my head and lose everything. Just kids and me. Okay, thank you, Casey, very much. And I think that we can smoothly move to IEP. Yeah, so it's not like we don't have any presentations for it, but it's something that is quite challenging for Ukrainian teachers. And if you guys have any questions, you remember this IP, I will say it in Ukrainian, індивідуальний план, да, для наших студентів. Okay, so this is IP, we call it in English. So if you guys have any questions, and I know that Casey has some folders or some plans for us to share. Okay, so let's have it like a Q&A session. What were your questions about it? Ukrainian teachers, I ask it now, Ukrainian educators. So what problems do you have with this document?
I think the main problem that we have pretty much like no idea how to make it. And usually what we do, we just take the like our educational plan, just the usual one, and shorten it and make it more simple, and that's all. So, and I think that this is not correct as far as I got it, because there must be some specific information that will be actually applied to education of this child, yes, and this must be a plan not only for me, yes, but maybe for child's parents, maybe. I have no idea, like, because everything is so general and no like useful information. So how should we do it? Like, for example, we are mostly like English teachers, yes, and how can we make an individual plan for a child? Yes, I don't know, any age. It could be first grade, second grade, fifth grade. Just we need an example so we can somehow understand like what is our task.
Is it okay if we can get like a little bit of like background information on how it works at the schools? Like how do students qualify for special education services, or just like a little bit of like background information, just like how they get into the program would be awesome.
Yeah, so that was the question back to like to our Ukrainian colleagues. So how do you understand that you have a student with special needs who qualifies the person for the status, and who tells you that this learner needs a special program? Who can share?
Okay, first of all, we have special facilities like resource centers that actually give the evaluation of such a child. So they go there, they have some procedure of evaluating, and they bring this document, kind of a document, yes, with like planning what specialists are needed, what is wrong, like what's the actual diagnosis. I'm not sure that's correct. Okay, I'm sorry. And this kind of a plan may be received by a kindergarten or by school. Yes, and after that, we know that this child is actually inclusive. We can see the what's wrong, yes, what we need in what sphere we need to give help, yes, to help him. And I can't tell like how teachers are picked for such a child, yes, and because like this year, for example, it was said to me, okay, you're gonna teach an inclusive child like as a fifth grade because children want you to be their teacher. Like, okay, I'm totally fine with that. I love children, and usually such children like are very kind and whatever. I'm kind too, so too kind, as they say. Like if to talk about assistant teachers, like those who help them, I'm not sure that we have that good education as you do, because usually assistant teacher is just a young teacher who is planning to be plan to teach someday like any subject, and they usually still study at the university, but they, for example, like English teachers in future, and for now while they're teaching they will be assistants, yes, of children. And after that, I don't know, we don't have any specific information, to tell you the truth. Like, we see the child and we just act according to the situation. That's all.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's actually so much information. Thank you. It's pretty,
welcome.
pretty similar. Yeah, it's pretty similar to how we do it. I've worked in the resource classroom, so it's a little bit more different than, like, for example, Taylor's setting. Taylor is more like where the students, I believe, stay like in your classroom for the whole day, right, Taylor? Yeah, awesome. So for me, I worked in a resource classroom where instead of the students staying with me for the whole day, they go to their regular gen ed classroom, and we'll pull them in for 30 minutes, maybe 2 times a day, depending on the subject. Regarding how I'm so sorry, the school bell went off. Regarding to how, what's it called? How we help the student, it depends on their disability. So for example, there are students who just need a little bit of assistance, a little bit of accommodations, like sitting in the classroom or processing their emotions. Other than that, their learning is great. For example, in 1st grade, we have a student who is very, very smart. He's very smart. He just has to learn something like once, and and he's able to apply it. So for us, we don't lower the material for him. We don't try to make it easier for him to learn. If anything, we teach them the same material. We teach them the same curriculum. All we do is give him accommodations. So for example, I wish I had an example anyway. For example, he has like a little like lap seat, similar to what Megan showed, like the vest, where it helps him like feel like comforted because he feels like he needs a little bit of pressure. So he'll have something that he can use on his lap to help him stay seated, because he gets up and moves around a lot. We also have flexible seating. I'm not too sure if you guys are familiar with flexible seating. I wish I had an example next to me. I'm not in my classroom, so I don't have anything near me, but if I do have an example, I'll go get it to show you guys. But we have flexible seating where the students are able to get up. Actually,
look, Taylor is showing us. Yeah, so this is
yes,
where you
awesome.
can juggle. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so we have flexible seating where the students, they don't have to sit in a regular chair. They're able to sit like on the floor, for example, with a clipboard. They're able to sit on a bouncy ball and just like stay, as long as they don't misuse it. They're not allowed to misuse it, but they're allowed to sit like on a bouncy ball and kind of like jump up and down a little bit. They're allowed to sit on like beanbag chairs if they need like a little bit of like rest, if the chairs hurt their back. So we give them a little bit of like flexibility in that sense. But yeah, it depends, like I said, again, on the disability. We have some students who they do have learning disabilities where the curriculum, it does not match their learning, their current learning style. So instead of modifying it in the classroom, we would be able to maybe like either lessen the work for them. So bring it down just a little bit. So instead of changing the whole curriculum and only teaching them 5 parts out of the 10 parts, we would teach them each of the 10 parts, but we would just make it a little bit easier. So if for example, in 1st grade, if I am teaching them to write like a paragraph where they're supposed to tell me a story, they're supposed to write a story. For a regular student, I would tell them, okay, you have to write 5 sentences for me in your story. For a student with a disability, I would tell them you have to write at least 3 sentences for me. So instead of not teaching them the lesson, I would just make it a little bit easier. Does that make a little sense?
Yeah. And do you write it in your IEP? So do you have to write it in your kind of your lesson plan, or in the individual programs that it's going to be not 5 sentences, but for some kids it's going to be this?
Yes. So in our lesson plan at the end, in 1st grade, we have something, we have like a plus and we have a minus. So for students who are higher than the current grade level, then we'll tell them to do, instead of 5 sentences, they're going to write 7 sentences, and they're going to explain it in front of the class. They should be able to tell me exactly what the story is. They need to have a proper picture that matches the story, and so forth. For the students that are like on the lower level, we will bring it down and we'll tell them, okay, write 3 sentences and draw a picture that explains their story. So sorry, go ahead. I feel like there's questions, but I'm not answering them.
I wanted to ask you, so you said about, you gave an example of students who have to write a story, for example, but my question is, do you change the end product depending on the disabilities that the child has? For example, I've got a student who has got some autistic problems, and so it's difficult for him to communicate with others, to recite something, to retell stories, right? Can I change the end product, so the task for him will be in the end different than for the rest of the class?
Yes. So like I said, it just depends on like their level. So if you think he is able, if he's not able to, for example, present it in front of the class, then don't have him present it. But you can ask him, for example, like, okay, can you tell me like what it is you want to write about? Or maybe like, for example, what did you do over the summer? Would you like to tell me that? And we have like steps in which we have them follow. So for example, in first grade, we'll do like number one, like brainstorm your idea. Like tell me what you want to write, and I'll either write it on a whiteboard for them and they can copy it down on their own paper to practice their writing. Or we can like sit down and sound it out. Like, okay, what do you want to say? The word like, okay, what letter makes the ooh sound? L, good job. So we'll like work through it together. But yeah, if anyone wants to jump in, go ahead and like answer.
I'll jump in on that too. So sometimes you don't have to change necessarily the end result. It could look maybe the same as all your other students. Is I want 5 sentences from this student. If your student is capable of writing 5 sentences with support, then that's what we want first, right? So say your student his problem is he can write the sentences, but he can't understand the story, or he can't read the story on his own, so he doesn't know what to write. You could add in visuals, you could like those kind of support. So if he needs to see pictures with the words, you can have those ready. If he needs to have sentence starters to start his sentences, you could do that, and you could still require that. What he needs is just extra support added in. So that's part of like, I guess there's a difference between what we write in an IEP as a goal, as a learning goal that we track with data that the student needs to achieve by a certain amount of time, like quarterly. And then there's differentiation, like kind of like what Roseanne is talking about, where you can change your curriculum as long as it's hitting that same standard. That student is learning the same content. It doesn't matter how your student's learning it, as long as they can get there, even if it's different from other kids. As long as they understand, oh, this is how I can retell a story. If they have to retell it with pictures and not words, they still know that concept of this happened, then this happened, then this happened kind of thing, I guess.
So this
if
is
that
like
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So this is what we discussed, the differentiation instructions and UDL. So this is like about that. Yeah, so the same thing. So the product can be the same, but how you do this, what instructions you give to them. So this is the UDL or DI. Yeah, so this is exactly what we say. And Casey also shared a link as for article about modifications and accommodations. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Kenya, do you have a
ask
question? Yeah,
also?
sure.
Yes,
Sure.
I still have a question. Yes.
Sure.
I wanted to ask, yes, so you talked about different levels. Yes, some children are like extremely smart. Yes, and they don't need that much time, yes, to catch up to information. But of course, you have different levels, yes, of pupils. So do you work with them at the same time, or maybe you somehow divide and like you work with kind of like average, yes, like with the levels that are very close, yes, and the child who is behind maybe a little bit, he has like extra support, something like this, or they just have to catch up to you like they do in our schools? So we have, it depends on the subject. So for example, there are some subjects where, yes, we're not able to give them like the support that's needed for the lower level students. So we do try to get them to catch up as much as possible, but there are other subjects in which we say, no, we have to teach them differentiated. For example, we teach reading groups. I don't know if any other school does this, but in our school, in first grade, we have we have 3 first grades in our school. And as a team, we all meet up. We test the students on their reading ability, their phonics, like how well they can sound out the words, if they're able to identify how many words are in a sentence. So a bunch of little stuff. And after the test, we put them into levels. And when it comes to reading groups, we'll break them up into the groups, and each teacher will take her own group
and we'll work on that skill until they're able to move on to the next one. So for example, we have in our reading groups, we have CVC words. So an example like cat or dog or hat. So we try to get them to, instead of saying cat, we try to get them to learn how to say the word cat. So reading smoothly. Once they're able to read smoothly, they'll move on to the next level, which is blends. And in blends, they'll learn how to make the sh sound. So reading sh as sh instead of h. Does that make sense? So we try to break them up into groups for reading groups, and as they work along, then they'll move on to the next level. For example, in math, we don't have small groups. We try to do small groups if we have an extra assistant. If we don't have an extra assistant, we'll teach them whole group. And when the students start to work individually on their work, so once we finish instruction and the student is doing their work independently, then that's when we'll go and we'll help the students that need a little bit more assistance. So once I make sure the class is all settled and everyone is working, I'll go help a student that is a little bit on the lower side and needs a little bit of help, like adding or subtracting. For the students that are higher and they do finish earlier, because we always have that where students, like five of them are always like, oh, I'm finished, what do I do next? So we'll have like some sort of procedure where if you finish your work early, either flip the page over and start practicing like writing sentences, if it's like writing. If it's math, make your own math problem. Like try to make a math problem for me to solve. You can take out your library book, you can read, or you can practice your sight work, because they each get level sight word cards that we try to like prepare for them. So it's like a little thing where we have in a book box, and they each just go to their book box, pick the thing they want, and just work on that. If they finish early. If they don't, then that's when we come in and help. Does that answer your question? I hope that answers your question. Awesome.
Casey, you want to add something?
Yeah, it sounds like you're all kind of having the problem that we have had for a while, where it's like the double-edged sword of special education, of using these very general terms and paperwork for very specific needs and specific students. And the way that I kind of wrap my head around it is that it's almost like you're a doctor and the IEP is like their medical chart and the lesson plans are like the prescriptions. So you go through and here I can show you. Here it is. Come on back. This is the IEP snapshot that my class uses. And the term eligibility that we use is just like, their disability, keeping it light. And then you just go through here. And then this is the first step that we always do with a student who needs a new IEP or is coming in, doesn't have one. We're reviewing it. We just go through, write down, and each box is a really good way to like keep it all broken up. What their related services are, those are just anytime that they leave your classroom that you don't really do anything in the classroom. So their speech, their OT, occupational therapy, PT, their physical therapy. And then you go through and then you write down their goals. And so their math, reading, writing. And then what I like to do after we have all of their goals is to just figure out who is like and who is unlike. Do I have students who are still working on subtraction 1 through 100 using a calculator? Do I have students who are on to multiplication 1 through 100? And then we can divide and conquer that way using their IEPs, their medical charts, to figure out which lesson plans or prescriptions we can dole out either individually, small groups, or whole group. I hope that clears up something.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And also, Razan, you need to leave, so you have a staff meeting. I know that it can be a little bit overwhelming. I hope that your staff meeting will be smooth, sweet, and short, not long and hard. So we wish you to have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for your input. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, we very appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Okay. Yes, sorry, I always interrupt you. So there are people come and go, but Casey stays with us, and that, I mean, and that other American educators as well. But it's always like I interrupt Casey. Sorry for that. I didn't mean that. You know. Okay, good. So yeah, so with IEP, I think it's like a really long thing, and it's difficult to discuss it during 10 or 15 minutes. But who is responsible for IEP in the United States? So who makes this plan for students? Is it like a combination of teachers, like a group of teachers, or just a teacher of this or that discipline?
So we have IEP teams, and depending on the school, we also have an IEP clerk who will schedule all of the meetings, which is very, very nice for the schools that have them, because I know that can be just a pain trying to get everybody together at the same time, including the parents working out all the schedules. So it'd be the counselor. And then if the student has any of those related services, the OT, PT, or speech, all of those people would be on the IEP team. It would be their special needs teacher. And then if they're in inclusion, then they would go, then their general education teacher would also be part of the IEP team. And the school counselor, if I didn't say them already. And I think that's it. Am I missing anybody?
So there is like a whole bunch of people who is going to work on that. And
yes.
Okay.
And
so parents, yeah, you said parents as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, then we'd all get together, and we're trying to get students to be able to present their own IEPs, where they would go over their goals, and they would say how they're meeting them or how they're falling short, and generally present their own information. We don't really see this in elementary school just because it is a pretty cerebral task to ask of them. But a lot of times in high school, this is the trend that we're seeing, that the students will put on their own PowerPoint presentation and discuss all of this. And then the parents will come and they'll say, well, these are the behaviors we're seeing at home. Are there ways that you could work on this at school? Or what are the techniques that you're using in school so that we can bring them home and try to fix these behaviors all around? And just really try to, embrace the team model of education.
Wow. Maybe someone else can share, maybe that's different from school to school, or maybe you can add anything.
I would say, at least for my school, the IEP team. So the person mostly in charge of writing that IEP, I think is what you were asking, is going to be the special education teacher. However, there's different sections and parts. Say the student needs physical therapy needs, the physical therapist will write that goal for the student. So what they want the student to be able to do, how they're going to measure it, and when that goal hopefully will be completed. Maybe it's throw a ball. Maybe it's Johnny will throw a ball 9 out of 10 times a certain distance by the end of the quarter. That could be like an example of a goal. The special education teacher is most likely going to do the goal is relevant to the child academically. So math, reading, writing, whatever those goals may be. And you usually choose a couple, like 1 or 2 of the most important, like what you really want to focus on. And that's something the team can discuss. That's something you definitely discuss with parents. What do you want your child to know? What's most important? Because you can't always just teach everything, you know what I mean? So I would just say that certain team members are in charge of certain parts. So yes, it is one person to look at the whole thing and the whole document, make sure it's filled out, which would be the special education teacher, but she's not the only one writing it. Whoever services that child writes that goal, I guess, is a way to say it.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. I don't know how we do this in Ukraine. I think it's all for one teacher. And that, as I understand, in United States, so you have not for every class, but the IEP teams or team, yes, writes for the whole educational process, like for the whole year, for all disciplines, for all activities. Yeah. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes, so an IEP is up for reevaluation every 3 years, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. For every 3 years for a child. So that IEP team will look at that, and I don't know how to explain this. Or I guess they write the IEP based on what the student needs presently when you're writing it. And then you have a meeting with everybody there, and they discuss their parts that they're writing. And make sure it's okay with everybody, everyone's a go for it. And then if a goal is passed, so say the student passes one of the goals that you made for them, then you would have another meeting to maybe replace that goal with something more. And you would pull the IEP team back together. So I'd say you kind of do it as it's relevant, but we do have a reevaluation every 3 years for the child.
Okay,
I
thank
don't
you
know
so
if
much.
anyone wants to add to.
Thank you so much. Yes, so we also have the information how it is done in Ukraine. Yes, so like maybe it's supposed to be in the same way. And I will share with you, like our professor, you remember during our classes, so she shared some IEPs. So if Ukrainian teachers, I will share with you some examples. And you can see whether they are relevant to Ukrainian context, but at least you will have some ideas how it is done in the States. So, and we mentioned parents, yes, so, and I think that we can smoothly transit, so we have 10 more minutes, no worries, only 10 more minutes, I don't want to keep anyone more. So we have some conversation about parents, yes, so how we communicate and how we interact with parents, okay?
Yeah,
So,
so-
yeah.
My name is Asal or Asad, whichever. And I just wanted to add something to what was mentioned earlier, that we do have these set meetings, but if the team notices that a certain goal is met, like by the data, you're like, oh, this student has mastered this goal. We can have amendments where we call the parents and assess the student again and look at data and adjust the goal, so that we're not like, well, we have another year, so I guess we're just going to keep on working on this. But yeah, it's really student driven. So moving on to parents, thank you,
Yeah,
Casey.
and Casey's, so she has a whole folder of IEPs, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I absolutely love communicating with parents as much as I can. I think especially with some students that have behavior goals, the stronger the connection between the teacher and the parents, then you feel like a team is working to support the student. It's not just you trying to like help the student and you don't know what's going on at home and you're like, what are the parents doing? But instead, I try to have monthly positive phone calls so that they don't, yes, it takes a village, like Casey said. Yeah, so I think I called a parent at the beginning of the year and they said that was the first time in their child's entire 5 years of being in school that there was a positive phone call, because it's like usually something bad happens and then we call home. So I think with communication, like keeping track of how many, like who you've called this month and the next month, and asking the parents, being really open, like I need help in this area. What do you think would help your child in school, so that they feel like what they have to say matters, because in the end they spent the most, like it's their children and they want what's best for them and they've known them throughout all these years. And then they feel like it's a collaboration and there's some responsibility and they're aware of how their child is doing. So yeah, since we don't have that much time, I do want to leave space for questions, but I try to call home parents. Of course, if there's any changes to the IEP, we call home. If there's any concerns, we encourage them to reach out to us. We have parent-teacher conferences that are set, like the whole school has to do them twice a year. I think twice-ish a year, around like 1 to 3.
So can you say just a couple of words about these conferences, because what we see in what we watch in American movies, so it's always like tables and students present some projects, parents come and mingling around, having this gallery watch of what is happening at school. So is it really like this, or it's like an old-fashioned style?
It's pretty, well, there's spaces that are pretty similar to that. Like we have a science night or something where kids have been working after school on projects, and then like they set it up and the parents come and walk around. So it does look like the movies. That happens, I think, also only a couple times during the year. But the parent teacher conferences, what it looks like at our school is they come for 15 minutes. There's like 15 minutes. The teacher just stays at school for several hours after like the students are gone for that 1 week. And then like, let's say at 3, a parent comes in and they sit down, and then the teacher shares the grades of the student. Like the general ed teacher is there, and the general ed teacher shares how the student is doing in their class. And then as a special ed teacher, our role is to go over how they're doing in their goals. So we assess the students and we tell them, well, Johnny's goal was to read 30 words per minute, and right now he's reading 20 words per minute, and we're working with him, like we're seeing that he's really trying. So that's the time to bring up any concerns also, where you're like, well, I've noticed he's really tired, and on the days that he's really tired, he's less respectful, he doesn't get work done. Like, are you noticing something at home? So it's like a brief conversation about how the student is doing academically, behaviorally, socially, emotionally. And then we ask the parents if they have any other questions. And then typically they say no, or sometimes they do. And they're like, well, thank you. Like, let us know if you need anything. And then they walk out and then the next person comes in. So it's kind of like a interview. It looks like that. Like you're just sitting there and the parents come and leave. That's just how it is here.
Okay, and you can speak about students' achievements in front of the whole room, so in front of other parents. Is it okay?
So
or you do this like face to face, privately?
Yeah. So if there's 2 parents, like both here, one parent typically waits outside while the other one is here. Or sometimes if there's student teachers in the room, the teacher will always say, just letting you know, we have a student teacher from ASU here, or we have this person here. Is it okay that we share this? And then the parent can yes or no.
Yeah, because in Ukrainian context, I don't know how it is now, but in the past, we all remember this, when the teacher could tell your marks, so can speak about your assessment, about your achievements, your ups and downs in front of the whole class, in front of other parents, students. And I remember my mom, for example, every time she came back from this teacher parent meeting, is like said, you know that Mary, she did better than you, and you did like this, and she did like that. and yeah. I'm so surprised she never said, like, for example, John did worse than you, so you're good, so you're in the middle. She always tells, like, you know, someone is better than you. She never, because this information was shared to everybody, so everybody was involved in this discussion.
Yeah, we try not to do that. Yeah, we really try not to that. Even within the classroom, sometimes the kids have so much anxiety that they're not good enough because they're noticing some differences. And so I always tell them, we are not comparing you to another student. You are basically competing against yourself. So if last month you did 2 math problems, maybe this time we can do 3. I'm not like, sometimes I need to explain that every time we assess, because they have experienced those things like you also have, and they're like, I'm the worst, I can't do this, I can't do that. So it's lots of encouragement, like to the parents, to the kids, everyone, just a lot of encouragement.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Maria also wrote us that we are not allowed to do it in Ukraine now, and they hope that all parents and teachers follow this because it can be a little bit difficult from our background. Yeah. Okay, and we have Juanita, you wanted to share?
Yeah, sorry. So I know that, I don't know how to say her name. Kseniya.
Kseniya.
Okay. She wanted to know how to get the manipulatives, the ones that were on the little cookie cutter board. We took a class. I went to go look for them. They're here in my room. I never used them because there was a free app sound, but I don't know if I can share my screen and I could show you.
Yeah, and I can share the screen.
I also shared the document. Let me know if you guys can open it, or I can just post the websites on there. Hold on.
Yeah,
Share.
it works. It works. Mhm.
It's not this one. Can you guys see my PA reflections?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so this is the website. It's called All About the Learning Press. So this is that. These are the kits. So this is the basic kit. It's $21.85. This is the deluxe kit. It says like everything that it provides. So just like mine, like it has a little magnets you stick onto these. This is also some free resources. And then this is, I bought these without knowing that the professor also mentioned during the class that this is like where we didn't have to purchase it. So it would say like, yeah, so that was
Great.
that. Just in case you still wanted to know.
Of course, that, especially for first grades, so that's amazing. Or for those who, start learning English, for us, it's so valuable,
You
it's
guys
so.
able to open the link?
We have the link, yeah, so we have the link in the chat. And is this website that you shared with us, is it among those links?
Yeah, it's all for the pages that I just showed you, and then the free apps on there as well.
Okay, and for Ukrainian participants, I will save the chat with all the links, and I will post on our Google folder, so you will have everything with all the comments and everything. Okay, wonderful. So thank you very much for such a meaningful conversation. So I think now we have so many ideas and for our potential projects, and maybe something we can start implementing already like next day. Yeah, so you have lots of things that you can start implementing right now using the websites and all apps that were shared in the chat. So thank you very, very much. And yeah, so I wish we had this meeting earlier and more. I want more. So thank you very much. And that was so nice to see your schools, to see your kids, and you shared with us like your private, something private, yes, and it's very valuable. Thank you very much. So that's it for today, and I will